Welcome back to the Flicker Podcast. We're going to get into some pretty crazy testimonies here about alien collusion with governments from the United States and all over the world. It's going to be a wild one. It's going to be conspiracy theory heavy. Pay attention to the conspiracy theory meter down here. That'll let you know when things are getting wild. And we made sure that we have all the tools we're going to need for this one. I'm Dave. This is Wally.
Here's mine. I made this myself, Dave.
Okay. So make sure you hit the like button on this one. Drop us comments in the comment section below and hit that subscribe button. We'd like to get those numbers ran up. Let's get started. So this whole thing is based off of a man named Phil Schneider and his account. Okay, so Phil Schneider in 1995 gave a talk, and the talk was regarding, so let's get some background on him real quick. So Phil Schneider is a geologist and engineer who claims that he was working for or contracted by the federal government in their black op budgets to build deep underground military bases.
Yeah, for a private citizen, he had a high-level security clearance.
And he gives some pretty amazing accounts. He tells a story of him actually going underneath the earth, and then everything from there goes kind of haywire and gets wild.
Yeah, he claimed there was I think he said 131 military bases throughout the world, and he spent a large part of his life in the 70s, 80s, black ops budgets, building these huge military bases that were, some of them were 4 square miles.
So he must have been pretty good at his job, I would imagine, to get contracted.
Yeah, when you hear him speak, definitely sounds like he's got an in-depth knowledge of geology and basic engineering. Mm-hmm. Very convincing to me.
Right. Yeah.
Just the way he talks about how they did certain things was very compelling.
Yeah, he used a lot of technical terms as well. But things kind of go off the wire when he tells the story of him being dropped down a shaft that they drilled into the earth so that he can enter one of these bases. Or I think they were drilling it to put in support structures.
Yeah, the story starts with they drill 4 holes in a square pattern. And the way he explains it, from an engineering standpoint, that's like the entry into how they start building these bases.
And so he goes in there.
Into one of the holes, he's dropped down into an elevator basket.
And then when he gets down to the bottom, he says that he smells something so awful. I think he says it was it was worse than any sort of decomposing trash can smell you would have ever smelled. And then he's confronted by a tall being, which is an alien. I think he said it was an alien gray. Mm-hmm. And he's never seen anything like this before. So he's put in front of this thing, completely unbeknownst to him that it existed. And then he immediately kind of goes on the defense, or offense, you could say, and reaches for his pistol. He pulls his pistol out. I think he says he shoots 2 of them and kills them. And there's also military down there.
Yeah, they're accompanied. He said when they did this, often they were accompanied by military personnel.
Yeah, I think he said Green Beret, and I think he said Black Beret, which I've never heard of before. But he's got well-trained soldiers with him. So when he killed those 2 aliens, one of the other aliens waved its hand in front of its chest, and like a blue electrical beam shot out, took off pieces of his hand, and hit him in the stomach. Mm-hmm. And if you go back and watch the video, he's actually missing these 2 fingers in it. And then at that point, the military people shoved him back into the basket and then engaged these aliens, I guess, and several of them died in the fight.
As he's telling the story, later in his speaking, he's very pissed off because he says the government did not disclose the danger that would be involved in some of these military bases that they were building. But apparently when you have military personnel there, they knew something.
Yeah, and then he goes on to claim, actually, that the government did know about them.
Yes.
And that they also have treaties with the government.
Yep.
So this has been going on for decades, as far as he knows or we know. And they're actually working in cahoots with the government to be allowed to be under the ground in their bases and have, they do research experiments on people. And they're also extremely high tech. Like their tech goes way beyond what we have.
It's also, an exchange for technology that they give us. It was another aspect to it. As he's explaining the process of how they start the base with drilling the 4 holes, they set off a lot of charges and stuff. So, like, let's just say this is all true and that they did encounter aliens underground in certain locations. That would kind of roust up some aliens, and they would probably be coming at you like, what's going on? And that wouldn't explain why you would have an encounter like that.
And apparently they're not like extremely nice. Like it's more like, let's say you had an agreement to work with another company, but for whatever reason you didn't like the people at the other company, but you still kind of honored the agreement, but there was also still this like kind of angst against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like there's a treaty, but they're not friends.
Yeah, I think he goes on to say that there are actually 11 species of aliens that are living under the earth, and that 2 of those are benevolent, and they're kind of like they got trapped on Earth at some point, and they, for whatever reason, they can't come to the surface, so they're just a large group of them surviving. But 9 of the species are malevolent.
And according to Phil, these deep underground military bases, also known as DUMBs, D-U-M-B-S, are spread out across the entire country. And they're actually connected underground via a train system of maglev trains. So these trains hover off the ground a few inches and are capable of going up to Mach 2, which is somewhere around, I think, 1,400 miles an hour, which means it wouldn't take them more than an hour and 20 minutes to get across the U.S.
Yeah, the maglev train is a single rail train he describes, and it hovers 3/4 of an inch.
Oh, 3/4.
3/4 of an inch off of a single rail.
So we know for sure that technology exists today. Oh, the other interesting part that he talks about is the tunnels and how they were actually dug. Because if you look at the kind of standard boring machines that we have, they're extremely slow. They produce a lot of
Debris.
Yeah, debris, gravel, things like that as they're boring through. Well, this one apparently uses heat to kind of pulverize the rock into like a powder and then melt it down.
Mm-hmm.
And the shaft of the tunnel is like glass.
Yep.
So
melt
while
the rock into almost a smooth glass.
Yeah.
No debris.
Right. So it creates the border of the tunnel automatically as it's going through. And the other interesting thing when he mentions this is there's patents, I think, from 1972 for a boring machine that uses this exact technology.
I would say that thing exists. That would be the only way to do tunnels of that length, is with that tool. Otherwise, it's too many people would know about it.
Yeah, because you've got to cart away all of the debris. And with this, there really is no debris. And it's much, much faster.
It doesn't even seem like that high of technology to me. I'm sure it's a super expensive machine, but when you got a black budget, it seems very obtainable to have a boring machine that could do that.
Yeah, because I think he said that the black budget was between 0.23 trillion and $5 billion a year. I'm sorry, $500 billion a year. Mm-hmm. So between 0.23 and 0.5 trillion a year that they have that they can spend on this.
Yeah, it would explain why the Pentagon can't explain for what's the current $34 trillion budget, where they can't explain where $34 trillion is.
Right. And another thing I just want to mention on that point is that
we reached a high level.
We're going to need these right now.
Okay.
So before 9/11, the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld mentioned that they can't account for $2.4 trillion in the military budget. And then The day after he says that, not only does 9/11 happen, but where all of these records are kept in the Pentagon, a plane crashed into that office, destroying the supposed records.
Wow, that is high-level conspiracy.
Yes.
That meter is got to be like topped out right now, bro.
So
That's a lot.
that's a big coincidence, I guess. Okay, we could probably put this down. So he goes much further in depth here. So he had that alien encounter, and then all of a sudden he comes forward with all of this other information. And just real quick, I want to premise this with, he said he was not suicidal. Okay. He did consider himself a whistleblower, and he did say he was breaking the law by publicly speaking about this information. I just want to premise it with that. Okay. And he was non-suicidal. He said that several times because he actually had attempts on his life, according to him. He had been shot in the shoulder. His family was harassed. I think he said he'd been run off the road. Yep. Somebody apparently tried to kidnap his son. So if all of that is true, that's just kind of more evidence in his favor.
Yeah, he befriended a FBI agent that acted as his bodyguard towards the end. So he was that frightened. And when he speaks, he actually, all his talk about those attempts on his life and the weird things going on was also very compelling.
Yeah, it was. You really
seemed like he was speaking from the heart and speaking from experience. He's either one of the best actors I've ever seen in my life, or he's just total bullshit.
To be dead honest, he doesn't really come across as an actor.
He does not. Does not seem like that's what would make him the greatest actor, because
he comes across as an engineer or geologist, like somebody who's very rooted in truth. You know, it would be like the roots of science, the roots of physics for the engineering.
He comes across the type of guy that you would hire if you were the U.S. government to build this shit.
Right.
That's what he comes across to me as.
Yeah.
Just by the way he talks.
Right. He also goes on further to mention that this alien agenda and this treaty, that all of this is allowed by our government so that they can get access to the technology. So they make a deal with these aliens. Hey, we'll allow you to live underground, perform these experiments and do other things, as long as you give us new technology that can help us sort of, I don't know, evolve the human race or strengthen their superpower status. But then he claims that the sort of New World Order agenda is actually all controlled by these aliens.
He does make that claim, yeah.
That they're the ones that are in control.
Which to me, that could make a little bit of sense. I mean, that's plausible. So like if you, in the New World, he goes even further by saying that the alien agenda initially is to terminate the life of 80% of the humans on the face of the planet.
Yeah, that's like part of their agenda, is to do that. They also want access to human beings. So they want to be allowed a certain number of human beings that they can perform their experiments on.
It's dark stuff.
Very sick and twisted stuff. But if you look at it from the government officials' standpoint, I mean, imagine you have this alien race that is far superior to you technologically, and you may not have a lot of alternatives.
No, we don't know the whole. The government may not be acting as nefarious as we think. They may be mitigating this issue.
Right.
That's one thing about looking at this. At first, I was like, oh, this is bullshit, underground bases, and they're cooperating with these nefarious aliens. But then the more I thought about it, there very well may be reasoning behind cooperating with them.
If you actually kind of take it seriously for a minute and think about it, there could be more to the story. Because there's all these kind of crazy conspiracy theories about like the elites and the Hollywood actors, things like rituals that they do, the Illuminati, all of that stuff.
Adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome
Yes.
is a particularly heinous conspiracy theory. So the adrenochrome conspiracy theory is a wild one. Basically, it's a substance, a hormone, I think, that we secrete when we're in a state of fear.
Especially children, I think.
Maybe especially children.
Yep.
They may be easily more genuinely scared. than adults. I'm not sure. And the conspiracy theory goes that they would on purpose scare these children so that they can extract, I think, their blood and get the adrenochrome out of it and then give it to the aliens. Because again, the aliens are not nice. They're not here for our benefit, right? They're looking after themselves only, and they're just willing to work with us. And this adrenochrome, apparently, to these aliens is similar to a drug for humans, like what would be cocaine or marijuana or something like that.
Yep.
And they want this drug. So if we're going to actually talk through this, you basically have super strong, superior technology aliens that are also drug addicts.
Who are drug addicts that want the secreted hormones from humans. They're not actually eating humans, although he does say that there is a couple of species that actually eat humans, but for the most part, it's the hormones that we produce that they want.
Which is kind of a layer above. Like, so a lot of people, the adrenochrome conspiracy theory really is about the elites using it for themselves in some way, shape, or form to keep themselves young or intelligent.
Yeah, the recent ones, yes. It's more about like elites taking adrenochrome as a drug. Taking Phil Schneider's point of view on this, it's not the elites or people high up in politics taking it. It's to mitigate this threat.
So you'd have to imagine if you're confronted with something like that, the only thing you could really do is try to strike a deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking from the bottom up, you can't see the whole picture, right? So this whole adrenochrome conspiracy theory is for the elites, but really the elites are trying to mitigate the dangers of these aliens so that they don't essentially truly keep us as like cattle or bags of adrenochrome that they keep around, which again is only brought out of you when you're in extreme fear, which means they would have to put you into extreme fear on a regular basis. Sounds a lot like demons, actually.
It does sound like demons. Underground demons. Reminds me of the Book of Enoch.
Yeah.
You know, the history of the world, you know, the Emerald Tablets way back, you know, the Book of Enoch is where all the demons on the planet were disbanded to 3 different cave systems deep in the earth. And all these demons were captured and bound in these caves. And 2 of them, you know, they had bad demons. I'm not sure what the other cave was. And then the 3rd cave was beings that were not that bad or not that evil. It was more like...
Yeah, because originally these demons were actually sent here by God. They were angels, and then they became the 200 fallen angels, which we would suspect perhaps are the demons.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that that underground story of Earth ties to what Phil's talking about in these cave systems.
Yeah, that is interesting.
This has been going on for 12,000 years, if it's all true.
And they do kind of come together at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 stories, the Book of Enoch and his account. And I think these 200 angels would be happy to probably hurt people as much as they can.
Yeah.
Because we're God's creation, and God actually sent Enoch to let them know that they had fallen and they're going to be banished to these cave systems.
I mean, you can also relate like that those 200 archangels taught humans occult practices. And then you could also look at this technology that these aliens are providing to our U.S. government as almost occult type technologies.
The other kind of interesting thing, so imagine you're one of these 200 fallen angels, right? And you're a powerful being, you're super intelligent, you're very capable, and you're banished to a cave system, right? Like they say the opposite of addiction is community, right? Like if you have a community of friends and you're interacting with people on a positive way on a daily basis, you're going to be less prone to addiction. Right now, these aliens are banished from their community and put underground, very intelligent. It's like the saying that the idle hands are the devil's tools, so to speak.
Yeah, so some sort of elixir would be very valuable to them.
Any way to kind of escape their reality.
Yeah, because they're sort of in a prison, which I bet they get out every once in a while, and that might explain a lot of alien sightings. Reptilians.
Yeah,
I
reptilians.
think one of
are
the
known.
species is the reptilians.
Yeah, let's put those on. I guess the reptilians would be the malevolent. And then you've got the Nordics on the other side, which would probably be the benevolent or helpful one.
And actually helping us. There's a Nordic one, alien, I've seen, and I don't remember his name, but they used him for many years as a consultant. And there's actually a picture of this guy with and he's got a 1200 IQ, and he's very large and Nordic looking, and he consulted the U.S. military and the U.S. government. I think he actually spoke to a president or something, but this was in the 50s, I believe.
I think I've heard that same one. And they also have a long lifespan.
Yes.
Of something like 400 or 500 years.
There was a lot of crazy stuff going on during the Eisenhower presidency.
Oh, really? So if somebody wanted to look it up,
Yep.
they could search Nordic aliens, Eisenhower.
And that's when Area 51, all that stuff was going down.
Yeah.
Post World War II, the nuclear age.
So another aspect of this, now that you bring up the reptilians, is supposedly they also have control the entertainment industry, meaning Hollywood and music, and governmentals.
CIA.
Or governments, yes, and the CIA. And the CIA seems to be, because they've got their hands in everything, right? The CIA, they've got their hands in everything. They're suspected of potentially killing Kennedy. They have been involved in overturning governments, installing their own rulers for countries, right? They almost would come across as the hands for these beings, their ability to come out and actually manipulate the people on the earth. And they also had Operation Mockingbird, right? Where they had people like famous actors and musicians and people in media kind of
High up.
Yeah.
Actual agents almost. They could be actually acting alien agents in the CIA.
Yeah.
Could be acting alien agents in high levels of government and in the New World Order.
Right.
I mean,
Because when you
Klaus Schwab is pretty sus, for instance.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum.
The pandemic.
Right.
Here you have that,
The strongly forced injections, right? Not actually forced, but socially they were able to manipulate people into trying to bully them to get this injection.
Yeah, that was very scary for all of us, a dystopian, and everybody thought they were going to die.
Yeah.
The whole world.
Yeah, because when you look at the media, I think today it's so obviously divided between political beliefs, and you never get the full story from either side, right? And the story is always told to make you hate whatever the opposite side is, whether it's Republican or Democrat. And it truly is a tool of divisiveness, it seems,
Absolutely.
now, more than actually informing the public.
To keep us all divided and fighting each other instead of knowing the truth.
Yeah.
Which is, if this is all true, I'm not sure if I want to know the truth.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff for sure. I mean, I used to look at the CIA as somebody I would never trust, right? If you got somebody who's in there trying to manipulate everything all the time, let's say you knew a person like that, you would never trust that person. You knew they were always, whatever they said, anything they did was always to obtain whatever their personal goal is, right? And they would say and do anything to...
By any means necessary.
Right. So that would be a person I would be like, I want nothing to do with that person. Which is kind of how I've always felt, well, not always, but for the last few years, kind of about the CIA. But when you flip it on its head with this crazy conspiracy theory that they're working for the aliens and really that they would be doing this to protect the people, right? And they could never tell you the whole story and say, hey, believe it or not, we're basically enslaved by aliens. And we're doing the absolute best we can to keep some sort of normal semblance of life.
Yeah, to take an example, like a hot one lately is all these missing children. So if they are indeed mitigating that, and currently we've got maybe like, let's just say 50,000 children missing a year. If it wasn't for our government mitigating it, that number could be much more random and much larger.
Again, taking it as truth that if our government wasn't trying to mitigate it, or certain people weren't trying to mitigate it, we would all be essentially in pens, like pig pens or chicken coops.
Enslaved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what we do with animals when we want something from them.
Or just annihilated. Or they would implement their 83% plan of killing us.
Getting rid of 83% of the population, which is another thing, another conspiracy theory about the New World Order, that they want to bring the population size down. There were those crazy stones in Georgia, the guide stones, I think they were called, that had, I think, 20 points on each one in like 7 or 8 different languages that was carved into granite. And it talked about keeping the population of Earth down to 500 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems the math is mathing on that.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
And the New World Order hates us in America with our guns. They don't want us to have guns. And
right.
They sort of already implemented their plan where Australia and Western Europe, like, there's almost no gun ownership.
Right, disarming the population.
Would be a step
right
towards that plan. And that's why I don't like the New World Order at all.
Right. And all of this brings us down a path of less free will, right? More constraint, which is another big thing that I've kind of theorized with the mark of the beast from the Book of Revelations in the Bible.
Which, by the way, in the Book of Revelations, these demons are still, in the Book of Revelations, these demons come out of the caves.
Right, exactly. And a lot of things come from underground too. The locusts that come out that are like, not regular locusts. They are genetically engineered, or they're little robots, the way that they're described. Mm-hmm. It says the earth opens up and these things fly out.
The beast comes out of the sea.
That's another known thing about USOs instead of UFOs, unidentified submerged objects in the ocean.
It's an interesting thought line that we're in with, is the government mitigating this for us? And because current conspiracy theories, we all point the finger at, like, Hillary Clinton is a reptilian and stuff. It just gets absolutely nuts. But the more you look into it and the more you think about other possibilities, as a critical thinker, a higher level critical thinker, that mitigation possibility comes into play.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say a higher level critical thinker, just considering all the crazy stuff we're talking about. But if you were a wacko conspiracy theorist who thought about these things and took them seriously, that would be a conclusion you might come to.
Well, that's why I like not having the stuff, all these unknowns is what creates these wild conspiracy theories.
Right.
Because say what you want about conspiracy theorists, they still kind of tend to read between the lines, and a lot of them have common sense. A lot of conspiracy theories turned out to be true.
Right.
So when there's no disclosure and we don't know what's going on, but it is documented that there's missing children, and the pandemic seemed like bullshit and all this stuff, some of that conspiracy theory is going to be tethered to anger and finger pointing and demonizing political figures because there's no disclosure.
Yeah, and the other thing that really gets me about this is the fear aspect and the adrenochrome aspect, right? So, because it ties in almost too well with the idea of demons, or even just like monsters, and their whole point is to scare.
Fear is an energy.
Right. And then they can somehow or another extract that and then feed themselves with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or get high with it.
I mean, it could be that simple. Bizarre, but simple.
Yeah, because another thing I've seen in the conspiracy theory world is like that whoever these things are that are in charge have to broadcast it in some way, shape, or form.
In plain sight, yep.
Right. So you were telling me about the movie Monsters, Inc., which I've never seen.
Yeah, Monsters, Inc., the animated Pixar, I think it was Pixar. They have this factory, and all these monsters are working this factory. Monsters, aliens, right? And there's doors in this factory, and each door connects to the closet in a kid's bedroom. And these monsters step out, and they do their best attempt to terrify these children. And then these little elixir bottles fill up in the factory, and there's a meter, and they're like high-fiving each other, like the fear that they created in these children. And that's like basically in plain sight animation from Hollywood about almost exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's why I got the tinfoil hat on right now.
Yeah, these were a necessity. Yours looks good, by the way. I like what you got going on there.
Yeah, this is
Asian inspired.
I like the size of it. It, protects my pineal gland. I like maximum protection.
Yeah, good call.
We should sell these on the merch store.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good idea.
$59.99.
Hell of a deal. This conspiracy theory, I feel like, is the king of conspiracy theories. This one actually takes all of the other crazy, kooky conspiracy theories and is able to connect the dots on all of them. And then in turn, you can go to the Book of Enoch and it syncs up with that. And then you can get to the Book of Revelations and there's some slight syncing going on with that one as well. So this is kind of like the king of conspiracy theories.
Absolutely the king of conspiracy theories. Absolutely. It's the big one.
It's just wild that Phil Schneider was the guy to kind of bring it all out and bring out the conspiracy theories that ties every conspiracy theory together. And by the way, it wouldn't be a good conspiracy theory unless he said that he wasn't suicidal and then he ends up dying a year later in his
started
apartment.
talking out at these speaking engagements he was in, and a year later he was dead.
Right. Saying that I was scared for my life. People are coming after me. And I forget exactly what he died from. I think they ruled it. What did they rule it? It was a questionable death. I think they said his catheter hose got tangled around his neck or something.
That's ridiculous. It's
Which sounds like strangulation to me.
That's a weird thing about these people that get offed that are whistleblowers, or the Project Blue Beam guy. I can't remember his name, but they all die.
Even
and it's like, they just like, oh, what should we say this time? Oh, he strangled himself with his own catheter hose? I mean, really? That's the best they can come up with? That part of it is like, yeah.
The other crazy thing, dude, all of his injuries were completely consistent with his story.
Mm-hmm. They were.
Right? He needed the catheter hose because he got hit by that beam that split open his stomach, and at the same time took off his fingers.
Exposure to radiation materials, and his bones were brittle. He was in bad shape.
I wonder what would have happened with him had he not died.
He was very passionate about getting this out. Very, very passionate.
Yeah, he's very passionate about getting it out and trying to get others to stand up.
Yes. He had a call to action where he wanted people to do their own research and get this movement out there and exposed, I guess, so we can deal with it together.
And then the wild thing is that he made all these claims and he never really put it together that maybe the elites were doing everything they could to mitigate the potential damage from these aliens that he claimed that ruled the earth.
I could see the government doing that, because let's just say there was disclosure and they had this State of the Union address and the president says, guess what? There's 11 species of aliens that have been here for 12,000 years and we are doing this. They just need a certain amount of children a year. All of us gun-toting rednecks in America, we'd be like, not on my watch.
Right.
And then you got just chaos.
A massive war would break out, and the fact of the matter is these things are so technologically advanced, more than likely we would lose that war.
I would hope, if that's what's going on, our smart people in government probably have done that math already, and I would assume that they're correct. But part of me, the conspiracy theorist in me, wonders if we don't have a lot of bad actors there, and maybe it's a mix of both. Like some of it's about, military technology, money, power, positions of power.
The corruption, you mean?
Yeah, like political positions. America being the greatest world power because of the technology that we got from cooperating with these alien species. Stuff like that is, a little shady.
And it would be, if you were trying to mitigate the damage, but also get technology in return, and technology really is the most powerful tool, regardless of what you're using it for. It could be used to heal somebody, or it could be used to enslave somebody. Technology is the one.
Another thought is these alien species are indeed so much more intelligent and powerful, and this technology that we just can't even imagine. They would look at us like animals.
What's the best a crow's got? Picking up a rock?
Yeah.
We're just, we would be equivalent.
Little ants,
That happen to give off this substance that they enjoy.
While they're in some sort of prison, that some sort of universal law, they're not allowed to come to the surface of the planet, at least yet.
Right.
Or they're planning some war like that happens in Revelations against God.
Right. That is another theory I've actually heard, that they, in one of these deep underground military bases, you have to sign an agreement if you enter that says you will not use the word Jesus Christ, and that there's actual Nephilim, right? The giant Nephilim from the Bible are still in these bases. And the other thing it mentions in the Bible is that there were Nephilim earth on those days, and I forget the exact quote, but there was Nephilim on the earth in those days and beyond. Like there's a quote there that says, not only are they there then, they're there past then.
Yeah, they are.
Right? And he said from this was just a little snippet, but he said that the Nephilim are in there and they're gearing up to go to war against God, and they think they're going to win.
Is this like the Gog and Magog, right? You've heard of that?
Not exactly. I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
We'll have to look into that, like maybe for another show or something, but it sounds like that this Gog and Magog war could apply to this situation, possibly.
Okay, so that's it for this one, guys. That is the king of all conspiracy theories. That kind of brings them all together. Keep in mind, if there's no real evidence to back any of this stuff, we're literally just kind of spitballing here on what might be going on in the world. We don't take it too seriously ourselves, as you can see.
Although I may not be able to sleep tonight.
Well, keep your tinfoil hat on. It'll block out the alien rays. You'll be good.
I hope so.
So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and let us know if we missed anything about these subjects in the comment section below. And we'll see you in the next one.